And they broke Shopify, did 2.5 million in 1 hour.
What is up, people? Thanks for tuning into the After Foreplay podcast. Today's guest is Daniel Phillip. Daniel is the founder and CEO of Atlas Creative Group, which is a global holding company that builds, sells, and acquires brands. Pretty cool. In this episode, we talk about his nomadic lifestyle and how he started from peddling beer out of the trunk of his car and living off selling his body to medical experiments. Now he's running an e-commerce empire with hundreds of employees and offices all over the world. Guys, get fired up because this is one of the most awesome podcasts we've done to this date. You're going to love it. Sit back, soak it up.
Yeah.
You're going to keep your ego nice and down low
This
with
is
ours.
intro to Dan. This is Dan. No intro.
Daniel,
Just Dan.
This is just Dan.
unfiltered.
This is Daniel before Foreplay.
All right, man. Well, I feel like we have so many different similarities and cool things that we're working on. Like, I mean, just looking at your Instagram, like you're doing a ton of stuff, same level as us with like e-commerce, and then you're doing surf trips, all this cool shit I feel like we could dive so deep in on. But you were saying something earlier about wanting to buy a jungle cat.
Yeah, that's a good way to start.
I feel
let's
like
talk about you buying exotic animals in the Philippines.
I mean, who doesn't want to buy exotic animals? Like, it's either you're like a dog or a cat lover. I like dogs, but like with dogs, there's not really any like super exotic dogs. Like, what is there an exotic dog?
I don't think
not
so.
really.
Like
I don't
maybe
know.
You have like
some
the Great
wild
Dane.
dogs in Africa or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel
but
like the most exotic you can get are like those. What are those like Asian dogs? They're like they look like they're lions. They're really big and
Oh,
fluffy.
yeah.
They're really expensive.
yeah,
Like
like
quarter
the
million
little ones.
dollars. Yeah, I feel like they're not exotic. They're just expensive,
Yeah.
right? Like that's not
So you can get expensive dogs.
expensive dogs, not exotic dogs.
No,
So your interest is in the cats.
yeah, okay. Well, I like cats and dogs for the cat and dog lovers. Like, no hate from Dan, but so in our office in the Philippines, like I was looking into like the psychology behind having an office pet and stuff like that, and I was like, how cool would it be to just like go over the top and have like an exotic like cat or like lion or something like that. And so I did a lot of research into it, and just long story short, found out it's like not the greatest idea because like all the like the like they're fine, they're nice and cute when they're small, but like the amount of stories and like the cost, it was like $100,000 to keep them a year in terms of cost, and like you need a big space and can't really have it in the office.
Like what kind of animal are we talking about here?
Like
a
we're
tiger?
talking about like a Siberian tiger
Okay.
or like a lion or like a cheetah or stuff like that. But anyway, it's just.
So where's all this cost coming from? I'm guessing like the food.
Yeah.
the
The
big
food is
part.
like the bit like they eat like they're like all carnivore diet. That's just like
Right.
just crazy.
Yeah.
And so I was like, talked to our board and I was like, hey, like, should we do this? And they're like, no. and then so we're like, fine, we'll get a pug. So now we have
You got a Siberian Husky to office pug.
yeah. So anyway.
Okay, well, first of all, you'd have to find some veterinarian that would be willing to work on a tiger somewhere in your local area.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because you'd have to be like, let's say this thing got sick, then you have to transport this tiger to someone who's willing to take a look at it.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a hard part of it. So where would you even look to get?
I don't know.
How,
There's like
how deep did you go in this search?
Oh,
Yeah.
I went pretty deep. Like, I went like page 30 on Google. No, but yeah, I like everybody was saying like, I mean, there is a whole business for it. Like it's a pretty big business. I guess like, like yeah, I think it's in Africa, but then they ship it to you and like all papers and everything like that. But it was like really expensive. If you get them younger, it's not that expensive. But then if you get like once they grow older and just all the cost, then you have to have a full-time like caretaker if you're not doing it. And yeah, I mean,
So
that's
let's say that the price wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
Would getting a cat be easier than you thought it would be?
oh
after
no,
doing the
100%.
research?
Like no,
Yeah.
I'm not at the stage yet, but like 10 years, I'll definitely have like 5 lions.
5 lines. It's an odd number. One's gonna be the odd one out.
Yeah, I don't know, just in case like a couple of them. Like,
Okay, well,
kill each other.
if the finances wasn't an issue, what would be like the first animal
Yeah, what would be the
that
first
you would
one?
go for?
Yeah, I would go like Siberian tiger. Like I've always been intrigued. Like I was like whatever, like 7 or 8, and I watched the National Geographic. Like Siberian tiger was like my spirit animal for sure.
Dope.
And or the cheetah.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about for you guys?
You need a lot of space for something like a cheetah.
Oh,
I feel like
yeah.
they want to run a
Just
lot.
run around.
Yeah.
I feel like younger, I really wanted like exotic animals. I feel like that's slowly just transitioned to me wanting motorcycles.
That's my exotic animal.
Realistically, like, if I think about like what I really want to spend my money on, if it would not, I don't think it would be animals anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, what about this?
Yeah.
You know that movie with Matt Damon where they shrink everybody down to like this
yeah,
microscopic
yeah.
size? What if you could do that for animals, and then you could
100%.
have like a fish tank with whales in it? And you
Yeah,
had like
would.
humpback whales in your living room and a big fish tank.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
That'd be cool as fuck.
That would be cool.
That'd be cool with
that'd
all
a sight
animals.
to
Like I feel like all of the cool animals are massive, but it's like we can't have them. So it's like, or even if you could keep a tiger as like a little, what are they called? Cubs? Like a tiger
think
cub. That'd be
tiger
so
cub.
much cooler. I feel like I would like a little tiger cub. I
Yeah.
feel like we could stunt their growth, like give them shots and stuff.
We're gonna get
just like
so many complaints from
anti-growth
PETA
hormone.
on this podcast.
Oh yeah, Peter's not gonna like this podcast.
tigers.
And you can't stunt their growth. I think we'll be able to eventually put people on the moon. We can stunt the tiger's growth.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they can do it with people, right? Like they've experimented a whole bunch
With
people.
stunting people's growth.
Yeah, or with like hormones or with
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Like I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, human growth hormone.
Yeah, HGH. Oh, so like 6 months ago, I started on a journey of like I want to get as big as the boys here on the podcast. Like getting there. Gotta get the abs for summer.
So you're doing steroids now? Is that what
No, so I seriously looked into it because I mean with everything I just always like I'll just explore, right?
Yeah.
And then I realized it was not the greatest thing. But I went to the store and I was just like, hey, how much is this?
In where?
In the Philippines.
Okay, they've got an
Yeah.
HGH store.
No, they've got like a supplement store that just have HGH. But I wouldn't. I don't know.
They have HGH there?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I mean, is that not allowed here? This
No,
it's
you can't.
anabolic steroid, right?
Yeah, you can't buy it. I think it's illegal.
it's
to be
definitely
honest.
available here.
It's available.
It's not
It's
legal.
you can't like I just walked into a supplement store and like yeah we have it.
Yeah, no, you can't do that here.
Yeah, it's approved by the government.
Yeah, well, I think well the thing is like, and I've been working out in the Philippines for a while, like besides boxing and stuff like that. But there are people there, like for them it's harder. They get to a spot and then they plateau and then they can't get bigger, right? So it's like it's either they're working 7 years and then like year 4, then they get to the next level. Otherwise, they have to take something to get them to the next level, right? Like it's just body type and stuff like that. So
They're just as smaller people.
yeah,
The Filipinos.
yeah.
Okay, so
I think
how's the working out going so far?
It's going good. I went out like I started off. I was like I'm gonna do 90 days and got to day like 25 and what I was doing was I was going extreme. So I was like I want to cut first and then also build at the same time. So I went on like an all carnivore diet.
Okay.
You heard of that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I've heard of it,
And because I've done fasting in the past, and anyway, I just explored and I saw what was his name, Jordan Peterson on.
Yeah,
have you seen
that's where
like,
I
all
first heard
meat?
about somebody
Yeah.
actually notable trying the carnivore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was terrible,
Oh,
but
really?
it was like 5 days in, or the first 5 days were just absolutely horrible. Like my energy was down, like everything was whack. I was just like there was no rhythm to anything. And
So it's pure meat, no vegetables.
no vegetables,
I
no
feel like I would
carbs.
never shit. Like I would just be clogged up.
No,
all the
it's
time.
true. It's true.
Yeah?
Because like I told my mom, like, hey, I'm doing this. Or she found out through Instagram or whatever. She's like, what is this like day thing?
Yeah.
And she knew I was doing something crazy. And she's like, good luck. You're probably not gonna like poop for like ever. She's like, you need your vegetables to sweep your gut. And sure enough, like yeah.
Huh.
I feel like everybody should try, as much as possible.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
You got to see what works for you,
Yeah.
right?
So how long did you do the carnivore diet for?
So I did that for like 20 days and then I stopped. And I would say like after the like day 6 or day 7, I was like, I'm feeling amazing. I was feeling amazing. But yeah, I just lost it.
Cool. I think we're
traveled.
getting a little bit in the weeds right now. It's like if someone's like listening to this cold, we're talking about like the Philippines and tigers and stuff. Like maybe we should like open it up to you.
Yeah.
And you give like a little bit of backstory on yourself, just to maybe provide more context to like some of this conversation, like where you live, kind of like 90% of your time, all that kind of stuff, and maybe that will like.
Yeah, everybody's probably listening
Serve as
to
a
this,
good
like,
foundation.
What is going on right now? Siberian tigers, Philippines, Asia.
Yeah.
Is he going to eat the
Steroids.
tiger?
So yeah, my name is Daniel Phillip, and I live currently in Asia between China and the Philippines. I am the founder and creative director, CEO of Atlas Creative Group. We are a holding company, creative agency that builds and sells brands, and we also we like to acquire brands as well. We just bought our first brand in the States.
Cool.
So yeah, and we do a lot of different things, and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So you grew up here in Toronto?
Yeah.
Or
So
in Hamilton?
actually, not a lot of people know this, but I grew up in Jamaica. So my parents were missionaries. They went down to Jamaica to do some mission work, and for about like 8-9 years, that's where I was, and then came back here. And the rest of my life, I grew up here in Canada, and yeah, that's how I got started on the farm in good old north of Waterdown, on a horticulture farm in the fields, working on the tractors and everything like that. So
So
yeah.
when did you start getting into business?
I've always done little things. I think for you guys too, like when we got started or early on, we always had a natural inkling to do, to make money or to make things. Like the biggest thing was like, I was always taking things apart in order to build those things back up. Like Lego was like, I was obsessed over Lego, like absolutely obsessed. And I always wanted to buy different, Lego sets and build them, but I didn't have enough money. So that led me to, finding out different avenues of creating money. And I grew up in a relatively, it's like small business. So there was money there, but I come from an immigrant family, and there's two rules. You work hard and you don't complain. And you don't buy dumb shit. That's like the three rules. And so that forced me in order to, become resourceful and do different things in business. But growing up, I would take apart everything, build it back up. And then as I grew up, as I passed that level, I think we all passed around 13, 14, 15, where that turned for me more into like ideas and taking ideas apart. And so I would see people that were successful or doing certain things online or not online or just in regular day. And I was like, okay, how does that work? How can I take that apart? And how can I actually do the same thing? And so I've always been obsessed over that sort of aspect of business and entrepreneurship. And that just led me through. It's something that I've always been curious about. Yeah.
Cool. So who were there any like business figures early on that you kind of idolized that you started looking at? What are the ideas you had? How can I take apart what you've done?
Yeah, I don't know. I just like locally in my community, seeing different people and looking at what they did in terms of like people that were in the business space, like Elon Musk. If we're talking about like billionaire
like
status,
high level,
I was never really aware of that. I knew those people like existed. But like I never read anything when I was younger, like anything. We didn't have TV in the house and the internet was not really a big thing. So I didn't really immerse myself into that level until like after high school, where it was just like, yeah, consume everything. Look at all like what people are doing to build really big businesses. So yeah, that's how it all started.
That's cool, man.
So you started business right out of high school.
Yeah. Well, in high school, I saw like different opportunities to do small business. Like I would order fake Beats headphones from China. Found a random
From
website.
AliExpress?
Yeah, not from AliExpress at the time, but
This
like
is
from
pre-AliExpress?
This is pre-AliExpress. I don't know. AliExpress probably existed, but this is like from like different forums where like there was different sites that would sell like random stuff. And so then I just buy them and resell it. And I just tell people like, listen, these are fake, but you can get them for like so much cheaper. And at the time, like when we were kids, we didn't have enough money to buy like the Beats, buy Dre headphones. And then also like I did small things like fixing people's iPhones, buying like cheap like iPhone screens and like redoing those sort of things. It was always fun for me to do those sort of things.
Sounds like the ideal story for a born dropshipper.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. It's been.
That's cool, man. So how did things transition from like early days of being in business here in Canada to now you're living in Asia? Like how did that transition happen?
Yeah, that was a little strange. Like after high school, I went to just like different avenues of business, meaning I worked for almost every industry, because I was like, okay, what industry like do I want to go into? Like what is something that I really wanted to go into? So I worked as a barista for a little bit, like 3 months, told them I was going to be there forever, but just to learn everything. And then like everything that I did after high school in terms of working, I always worked not for money, just for knowledge. Like I wanted to understand everything. So I worked for that cafe as a barista, and I would talk with the owner as much as I could. So I learned like all their costs, like everything. And then I realized like the restaurant and cafe business is super not ideal, because you have like super high costs and you're just like so much stress and everything like that. And then I went from there to a couple of different jobs, and I also worked into like a sales job for a corporation as like an introductory manager for like sales. And I was driving around in the car, like knocking on doors, selling automatic lubrication systems for trucks. The most random like system. Like,
what doors are you knocking on?
You're knocking. I was knocking on company doors. Like I'll try to do like the most simple explanation for this. So like a tractor trailer, like the transport truck, they have a lot of components that need to be greased all the time. So instead of them going into the shop and getting greased every single day, 2 days, 5 days, there's this system that was actually created in the Netherlands that you put on the chassis, and through like tubes, it just greases everything. And so that's what I was selling door to door. Probably like, now that I look back on it, one of like the hardest sales ever. But that taught me how to just get into the door. And just,
so what do you think you got out of that? I've always said that the best job, and I'd say to like any of my kids that are getting some sort of job at a school or like right out of the gates, like you want to get in sales as soon as possible. If you have any aspiration of being an entrepreneur at all, that's always been like I think a good piece of sound advice. So now that you've been in business for a little bit, like what do you think you got out of that early job in sales?
Yeah, for sure. Like almost everything. And I would say one thing too, like it's not only like, it could be a form of like any sort of like small sales. Like a lot of entrepreneurs, like when we listen to podcasts and stuff like that, and I'm sure there's many stories in your cases as well. Like it could be anything from like a paper route where you have to go and push past that comfort of talking to someone, right? And asking them for something, right? Just like asking. And for most people, it doesn't come naturally to them. And for me, it didn't really come naturally. I was naturally a shy person. So that pushed me like, hey, no, you just got to ask. You just got to ask. Just got and just like listen past the no's. And I think in business, as like what we do, right, in terms of e-commerce, it's a little easier for us. But in terms of just, day-to-day stuff, you just got to like let the no's pass you. And so the biggest takeaway was probably that. It was like learning how to just, you got to know, like, let's keep going. Next
Dude,
one.
100%.
Yeah.
Like it's a skill that pays off at such a high level too. Like being able to just, persuade somebody, get something out of somebody. Like, when you're doing e-commerce and you're just marketing from your computer, it's not something that you use often or that's necessary. But I think definitely at the high level when you're starting to negotiate deals.
Like day to day in life too, like shooting your shot is like, I feel like the best piece of advice for anything. If you feel like you want something, it's just like, all right, just fucking shoot the shot. Cause like, that's the first step in it happening, right? Like like even like dating or anything like that. It's like if you're not gonna shoot the shot, like you're not gonna find yourself where you want to be, like ever. Like that's step one.
True.
Like
and just asking once more. Just asking once more after a no usually pays off.
Most people are so conditioned to saying no, or like apprehensive, like anything no, like no, like I'm okay, but like then you just keep. Obviously not in like a weird or like a harassment type way, but even like business and stuff like that. It's like following up is like the biggest sales tool ever, Like even
60% of sales come in follow up.
Yeah,
because
dude, it's such
people
practical advice. Like remember when we were trying to get the Wi-Fi set up with the provider?
Yeah.
And then you had said that they said no at first, and then you're like, well, is there any way like I have a business I'm running from home, and then
I just stayed on the phone, and you'd find something that like hits with them. It's like, well, we got people coming in, like this is all bullshit, but it's like at the end of the day, it's not hurting anybody, Like it was like, and you just kept, and then we had fucking Wi-Fi the next day, and it would have been 2 weeks to wait, And so it's like the only difference between me and the person that waited 2 weeks, I just kept asking, and didn't take any like effort really. It was just
right. So they wanted to put you on a wait list, but because you kept asking, they moved you way up and just fitted you in when there was a gap.
Fit me
right?
in. They split someone's time so that someone came for 1 hour and then they had to come for another. Like she figured it out.
Yeah. Dude, it's such a good analogy. It's stupid and simple, but it's such a good analogy for just like making shit happen.
100%.
It is the people that make shit happen.
Well, I mean,
right?
you have to think too is like those people in their jobs. Like even if you're trying to make a deal happen with someone that's like a lower level manager at another company 100%. Or something, it's like those people are always choosing. If they're in that position, they're probably choosing the path of least resistance for them.
Yeah.
So it's like even more than you're pushing, like even if you're taking yourself to that next level and asking, you sometimes have to keep asking so that you push them to go to the next level. If you're dealing with other people, you're also limited by their capabilities, right? So it's like if they need to go ask that next manager to see if it can happen, you got to push them to that point, right? And it's gonna have to start with you if that's what you want. So I think that's it's a solid.
I think that takeaway is probably one of the biggest takeaways, because it's like, and it flows so much more from just like the surface level, like in terms of like making sales or in any like situations in terms of interaction. But I found it as someone who's starting to build a team, like that is the biggest thing. And then like finding people in terms of building a team, like oftentimes, like you guys have a team as well. Like you ask someone to do something and then they might not take action right away.
Right.
It's because they're not conditioned to do that. And like subconsciously they're putting things in their mind that they have to do first so that they push that away. And it's the same thing with like getting things done. And what I've found is like finding the people that are able to execute the fastest on what you give them will be 10 times better than someone that might be more like a little bit smarter, or someone that's a little bit more, intellectually, more advanced.
Right.
It's better to find someone that you can just be like, hey, listen, this is what we need to do. And we need to get it done today, and then just get it done.
I feel like it's also, there's a certain kind of people that they have more of a desire to like not come back. Like they have more desire to figure it out without having to come back. Whereas there's some people where their default is to ask another question and and ask how you would do it, and all this kind of stuff. Like I feel like those are the people you don't want to do, because then you're just working like through them for them, right? Like there's a certain kind of person that really, I don't know, maybe someone that's a little bit more self-conscious of anything, is like they don't want to come back to you for another. They want to like prove themselves. I feel like those are the kind of people you have to like look at too. Is like who's the people that don't want to ask you.
And I think this is something that's conditioned. Honestly do.
Exactly.
I mean, maybe there's people that are like, predisposed to have like that inclination towards action. But I've seen it with like some of my team members. Well, they'll ask me how to do something, and I'm just like, did you Google this? It's like that.
Oh, yeah.
Google first, ask second.
Google, that's my favorite word. Google it.
Because some of the things they ask are so simple, and it's like, well, you look this up first,
Right.
take some action, and then if you can't find it, then you ask, right?
Also, everything that we know is only from Google.
Exactly.
Seriously. We don't have a secret book. Anything that we found out through Google.
I mean, it's the same thing with courses too, and why people pay for courses, and why I've now started to slowly start to pay for courses is because like all the information ever is out there. The only difference between the internet as a wide scope and a course is the course has formulated hopefully everything that you want to know into that segment. So in terms of I can make that quick calculation, or it is like, okay, I could look for this, or I could do this online by myself for free, but what is the opportunity cost that I'm actually spending?
For sure.
Right?
You're not buying the information anymore. You're buying time.
Right.
Realistically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So true. Yeah. Okay, so walk us through kind of like the setup you got going on in the Philippines right now. You got an office you said in the Philippines. You got one in China.
Yeah.
I think something in Sydney as well.
We got a few remote teams. Like we're starting to expand our global market. We're looking for more partners to partner up and like open up different segments around, because I've realized that like, I can only do so much, and it goes back to the time, right? Like opportunity cost. At what point have I spread myself too thin, or like starting to build out a solid team that can do those sort of things. So I guess maybe I should start like after, still on my journey after high school.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
So after high school, and after I did a few jobs, I had a bit of money saved up. I think it was like 30 grand. 20 to 30 grand, and I traveled. I wanted to travel, so I traveled to Australia.
Nice.
I traveled down under, and over the first 3 months or the first 6 months, like what I really wanted to do down there was I was like, okay, I want to start a business there. I don't want to start it here because I did a few things and I just got judgment, or like that mental barrier of like I have to make things look good for other people and always explain myself and the whole time thing. So I was like, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to start something. And I never actually, in the first 6 months, I ended up not starting something, just looking for different things. But I bought a car. I started traveling. I learned how to surf. I started surfing, and I blew my money. Like I just completely like that 20, 30 grand was gone. Like next, like I'm sure you guys had some, like traveling is expensive.
Yeah.
Like it's really expensive.
Yeah. Especially in Australia.
Especially in Australia. So 6 months went by. I had a little bit of family there. 6 months went by. I had no money. I was in Melbourne, Australia, and I really wanted to get out to Perth because I wanted to surf and I wanted to explore that area. And so I've always been resourceful if I don't have any money. I had a car, So what I said was, I posted on Facebook at the time in groups, and I said, hey, if there's anybody that wants to go from Melbourne to Perth, I've got a car, I've got no money. If you can pay for the gas and pay for my food, I'll take you there. So
It's pretty far too. Like that's cross continent, right?
Yeah, it's like it's like a 4-day drive. It's like it's expensive, and like every time you're filling up, especially like in the desert part, it's like $120 a tank. So it's just like I didn't even know, but I had no money, right? I had a car, so I got people responded, and there were like 4 Germans in my car. And
you got 4 people.
Four people, 4 Germans. And like Australia, like the majority of people there that are traveling are Germans. I think they just have a really good like government whatever contract. But so here I am with 4 Germans. We're traveling the 4 days drive all the way to Perth, Australia, and I had no money, right? So I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like, when I'm in Perth, right? I'm getting there, but I've got no money. What am I gonna do? And was so fortunate, so lucky. There was a guy in our car, and he said there's a deal going on right now for the liquor store, and I'm like, what deal? And he's just like, you can get, if you bring your passport in, you can get a free sixer. A free 6-pack, literally free 6-packs of like Rattler, of like a lemon Rattler at the time. And so we had 5 people, right? So we're like, okay, we'll go in. So we went into one store. Then he's just like, oh, also, because we don't have Australian passports or Australian driver's license, like it actually works like unlimited.
Right, because they can't scan it.
Because they can't actually scan it, right?
Oh my God.
And so I'm just like, bing, light bulb, let's go. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to hit every single Liquorland, which is the beer store there, Liquorland in Australia. And we're going to hit every single one going to Perth. We had like 360 beers of this Rattler in the back of our in the back of my car. And it's just like, there's like it's like over bumps. We're scraped. Anyway, everybody was sick of Rattler by the time we got to Perth. And so they're just like, just keep it. And so I have all this, and that was the plan, by the way, like in the back of my mind, like they're not gonna. And so what I did was, how I made money was I sold on the beach like a Rattler, and there was like $25 a case, right? And I was just selling like for $10 here, $5 here, $15 there. And so that's how I got a little bit of money.
That's a fucking awesome story.
Yeah, that's story. I will remember that for the rest of my life, because not only like I was driving, right? And they've got such strict rules. So I never had I maybe had 1 or 2 at night, but like these 4 Germans were like drunk the whole way over
it's like
on
the worst
Rattler.
type of person to have, drinking all your stuff.
Yeah, and they're Germans too. Like they like to drink. Like Germans just love to drink.
Yeah.
Anyway, like,
do you remember how much you made off selling all the Rattlers?
Oh, I made, I don't know what I made, like enough to last me like a week or 2.
So what'd you do with the money?
I just lived.
Yeah.
Like I started surfing. Like I wasn't really in the mindset of like, okay, now I have this money, let's go again. I was just more of like, okay, what's the next opportunity? I didn't have like the big idea or the big picture yet. And so, yeah, one or 2 weeks later, I was broke again. I was on the beach surfing, and that time was real. Like I was really, really broke. Like that's like $0. Like $0. I think I had $5, and I had tuna and bread for like a week, and it was just like the lowest yet the highest time of my life, because I was just like, oh, this sucks so much. But then it was just like, this would be the coolest story in retrospect, like being like homeless on a beach in Perth, Australia, surfing, and so that time, that was like that moment I would say is like the pivotal moment in my journey, because during that time I learned a lot about that I can survive on like nothing. Right? And I think as entrepreneurs, it's like a big thing. It's like, okay, if we have that mindset in our back, like in the back of our minds, like, okay, if everything goes away, like we've been there before. And so, long story short, after those 2 or 3 weeks of being homeless, and there was a few other guys that are just living on the beach, just surfing. They had no food. The baker would bring by seconds every single morning. But the one thing that they did have, which I was so confused, they had like every single day they had like weed. I'm like, how can you afford? How can you like be
When
homeless?
things
You
are a
have
must for you find a way.
yeah, exactly. So long story short, those 2 weeks or that month passed, or it's just every day, like not doing anything, looking for jobs, couldn't really find anything. And then a friend of mine that was a backpacker was like, you should try medical trials. And I'm like, what is medical trials? You guys know what medical trials is?
Yeah.
I mean, I got an idea.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
firsthand.
So like,
I've never done a medical trial, but
so like medical trial is like you're a guinea pig.
right.
And so basically like, what's the movie? The new Marvel movie? Or the past one, like Venom? Have you seen Venom?
Yep. Venom,
Yeah.
Spider-Man's nemesis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Venom, like the movie.
It's Tom Hardy's in it, right?
yeah, and so that is like for the listeners, like that is a medical trial. Like you sign your life away, and then you go in to like a medical center for days on end, and then you get tested with all these sort of drugs. And so I went in. They tested me. They're like, "Yep, you're a healthy human being. You can come on in."
So you got a free medical check out of it, at least.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then they were just like, because they didn't tell me how much I was gonna make. And then right before I had to sign, they said, "Oh yeah, you're gonna make like $4,000. You're gonna be in the hospital for 1 week straight, 7 days, like days and nights, like the whole time.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna make $4,000."
$4,000
And then they're
a
just like, "Okay, these are all the symptoms, and you might die. Sign here." And I'm like, "Hell yeah, let's go, $4,000. Sign my life away." Like like no decision, no like second guessing. I'm just like 100%. Like other people have done it, no worries, right? And long story short, I got hit with an ad in that time. So this is like the long story short. In that week, I had my computer with me. And in that week, everybody else was like playing games and doing all that stuff. And in that week, what I did was I got hit by an advertisement from Shopify.
No way this ties back to Shopify.
Saying, no, 100, like this is a crazy story. And I've talked, like I went to Shopify HQ last year and I talked to the marketing director for that campaign. And I'm like, "Yo, do you remember that campaign?" I'm like, it was because of that campaign. And the campaign went like this. It was like a Printful and Shopify ad campaign. Was like, make a t-shirt brand in 5 minutes.
I think I remember seeing those like a long time ago.
Like this is 4 or 5 years
Yeah,
ago.
no, yeah. I remember seeing I remember there was they had like a video too that they'd walk you through and they had a design and you drop it in and then I think I remember seeing those, but that was before I ever popped into it.
So 15 hours later, I still didn't have my t-shirt brand. So it was like perfect clickbait. And anyway, just long story short, over the next year, I went around doing medical trials and putting all that money back into testing, building different brands that nothing else worked until finally I went
For a year.
For about a year.
Wow.
Yeah, 6 months to a year. And like I just knew it worked, right? Like I saw other people. And I'm just like, I had such strong faith that I could do it too. Because I was like, shit, like if someone else can do it, like why can't I do it? Like really, why can't I do it? First brand I built was like a hipster t-shirt brand. It's called Byron Butch. And it sold 1 million t-shirts. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh.
It sold 1 t-shirt to my dad. So, it's like the perfect story that everybody wants to hear, right? Like you hit gold right away. But anyway, that died. Same with like 100 other different stores. Until I went to Hot Selling Products. And I learned about more marketing and persuasion and funnels and sales copy. And I had a little bit of video editing background. And my first winning campaign was the Drake hat. You know the Drake hat, like the Hotline Bling hat? Remember that?
I think
Remember
so,
that?
like-
That was like 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago when that song came out. Anyway, he was doing a tour. My winning campaign was like this. I remember this vividly. Like I had made like sporadic sales over like a 6 months to a year period. And I was like really in the low of lows. I'm like, I need to find something and I need to tie everything into like everything, right? Like in terms of like, I got to hit the right target market. I got to have the right product. So anyway, I found this video. It's like the video, you know, the video of Drake, like,
Yeah. I know the music video for sure.
yeah, the music video, right? He's like swinging the thing, and everybody's making these memes of like hitting tennis balls and like throwing bowling balls and everything like that. And it was at Christmas at the time. So what I did was I did a free plus shipping campaign, right?
The free plus shipping.
Free plus shipping campaign. And like, now that I think back of it, it was pretty genius. But this was like a year of testing everything, right? Came up to that point. I took that, I edited Drake as Santa with a Santa hat, and I could pull up the ad. I think I have it somewhere. And he had like his sack, and he was throwing away those hats. He was doing that move and throwing the hats away. And then like the headline was like, free hats, free Drake hats for 24 hours, only pay shipping. And it was just like, I put it on, I put like $10 on, and like at night, I woke up the next morning, because I'm still in Australia, right? I'm targeting the States because he was doing a tour. I think I targeted Chicago. And then there was like 20 sales the next morning. Like
on
$9 on $10. I'm not even kidding you. It just like picked up, went viral. And that was like where I started off.
That's an awesome first product story.
And well, like 100th product story, like
right, the first one that worked.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, and then since then, that's where it all started, right there.
That free plus shipping wave. So this was back like 2014, 2015,
Yeah,
sometime around
something like that,
then?
2016.
So back then, that free plus shipping offer probably killed.
Oh yeah, that was just tip of the iceberg. And I remember seeing some stuff like way back when I was younger with eBay. Like they did it with people did it with eBay. It's not really super new.
People still do it. I've seen some authors still doing it.
Yeah.
For books, I think
books.
it does kind of make sense. Like you can be open and transparent about it.
Yeah, I mean for books too, I think what it is too. It's like people just trying to get their rankings up, right? So they're giving away. It's that whatever the cost to print a book, like the $2, is totally worth it to get to accumulate, and grow in the charts on like Amazon or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good strategy. I mean, like I just launched the watch, right? And I'm giving this away.
Yeah.
But this is like this is my top of the funnel. So I'm running ads to creatives, right? And I'm just giving it for free in exchange for content.
Yeah.
But like that's the top of the funnel. The bottom of the funnel is now I have a database of 500 to 1,000 creatives all around the world that I can just send products to for free because I know they'll take it.
Yeah.
Right. So the whole model with the free plus shipping, or even just free, top of the funnel. Like if you give value for free, you're gonna find something.
You get something on the back end.
So. Yeah, 100%. So you got this product that's starting to work, the hats with Drake. Where did things go from you realizing it's going to be a winning product?
Well, I knew that morning. Like I've never, like everybody, like you guys remember your first. It's like your first
Shopify sale. Oh yeah, I went out of my house. I was like on the street, fucking partying. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's like
great feeling. I'm an entrepreneur now. Yeah.
How about for you, Zach? Like
I don't even remember the first sale would have been. I think it would have been the first Shopify sale would have been in the first store we started, the one to Germany.
Which one was that?
That was the print store.
Yeah.
So that was the first sale, and then I tried to do the disposable cameras, and then we sold like 10 of those. But none of them were profitable. Like that's the thing. Is like none of those were profitable. So I felt like it didn't feel like the first. Like honestly, too, it's like I feel like I don't know. When I got into Shopify and like doing e-commerce and stuff, I had already. I don't know. I don't think I had like the same emotional connection with it because it was like I was trying to make more money than I ever had made. If that makes sense. So it's like anything until I was making more money than I would servicing my client base.
And you made a lot, like you like compared to 1 or 2 sales, you were just killing it in terms of like your other stuff. You were making so much more money.
I got excited when my time spent in e-commerce was then more valuable than my time spent doing what I had done for the last 4 years, and that's when it became really cool for me because I was almost like my expectations were already because like at the end of the day I only have so much time in the day, so it's like whatever I spend my time on doing, I want to be making sure I'm making the most money from it. So it's like when that teeter like shifted where I'm like, okay, more time I spend on building these brands equals more money than doing working for other people, doing client-based stuff. That was when it got really, really exciting for me. And that's where I kind of like, I stopped doing, I don't know, I still run my first business, but like I don't do outbound sales. I just kind of take what comes in.
Yeah, that's when your like blood thins out and you start like, your day just starts to flow and you're just like, whoa, that was another day, or that was like 2 months, or that's 6 months gone. And you're just like, Wow. Now
Man,
I'm really
it's
living.
crazy how much time flies when you're busy and
Oh
when you're
my
working on something that
goodness.
you like. It's
Dude,
insane.
yesterday we sat back and Shane goes, dude, we got to take more breaks. Because we noticed we had sat for 12 hours just working and it felt
Yeah.
like it went by and we're like, well, we've got so much more to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not only that, you're excited to do
Yeah.
what you're
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
I think that's the biggest takeaway. It's just like time versus the like productivity is all relative. It's different for different people, right? Like with when you bring in why and purpose, then like for you just basically trick your mind to just you're a machine and you're just continuously working, but then you don't feel tired. That's why I think sometimes like for me, like I can basically trick myself in order to work hard or like have small hours of sleep, and I don't get burnout because of that. But that only comes because I'm doing something that I'm truly like right in and 100% passionate about. Because if you're doing something that you really love and that comes sort of naturally to you, you're going to be the amount of energy you're putting out is going to be 100 times less than if you were doing something that is harder for you. It's like when I started pumping weights, like I couldn't even like bench 45s, like dumbbells each, right?
Yeah, it's
And
kind of
I
like
was so tired after that.
Right.
when you're fighting against yourself if you don't like
Yeah.
what you're doing, right? And then that's like the hardest person to fight against.
Like, I remember like my most tired days I'd ever have would be like just grinding on like a client project or like in an office
Yeah.
doing like a freelance project where I'm just like, you're just moving the mouse. That's
Yeah.
all you're doing. You're not, you're not
Yeah.
building anything.
So easy to trick yourself that you're being productive.
Oh, so and like, well, I mean, at the end of the day, you're getting paid. It's like you're literally giving your life away for a fixed amount of money. Like it just like that just drains you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially when it's transactional.
Oh yeah.
It's just like
Yeah.
crazy.
So you're selling a lot of Drake hats, which is good. So did you build a brand off of that product, or how did that go?
I tried, but then like I watched a whole bunch of videos where like horror stories of people getting sued, and then then I'm just like, oh, I can't do it. So I shut it down. It was so profitable. I shut it down. And then I did like those electric lighters. The electric lighters that are not, they're like Zippo, but they're not Zippo. They're like a zzz, like
it's a little wire or something, and it
yeah,
creates,
and then
like,
you just like
yeah.
and it's like waterproof, windproof, whatever. And that store was called the Lighter House.
Nice.
The Lighter House. That was a good store. Made a lot of money until I got a cease and desist from Zippo.
Oh, from
So,
Zippo.
yeah.
Okay.
So I got a call from UPS, and they were just like, "Hey, there's a letter from Zippo."
Anytime you get a letter doing business nowadays, it's never a good thing, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Whether it's from like anybody,
Yeah.
but it was like a stack, and somehow I'm like nobody can find your address if you don't have it on, unless they have like power, right? Like because they're gonna like customers, angry customers. If you don't have a good customer support or whatever, like if you're drop shipping or if you're building a brand and you're just like a one person, you don't have a team, you can't keep up, especially if you're scaling that. You can't keep up with what you're doing, and people like Shopify puts in place where they can't. And if you don't put your information out there, they're not going to be able to call you.
No, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was just like, whoa, I don't have my information anywhere, not even on my bank. How the heck did this person find me?
Right.
Right. So yeah, Zippo, they have their ways.
So what'd you do when you found the letter, when you read it?
I was just like, shit.
After shitting yourself?
I was just like, what am I gonna do? I have no idea. And I
Did
just
you write
put
them back?
No.
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 So
I was like, wait.
I feel like that's the first mistake people make, is they write them back.
No, I was just like, I asked my dad, and he's like, yeah, don't say anything.
Yeah, I made that mistake too, man. Like if you, I don't know if you kept the store open, but I had like a client relationship go sour, and they tried to come back like a year later, and they're from New York, try to get money from me. And I got a lawyer to go and like write them back, and then it turned out like I had spent like $1,500 over $2,500 to write back, and then the last time I was like, okay, the point where I was about to not be profitable anymore in this transaction, I'm like, fuck it, I'm not going to write them back, and I never heard from them again. Yeah, like I feel like there's so many
easy ways to get people, especially early business owners that don't understand basic kind of law.
That's our one vulnerable spot, right? Like when we start, we're just testing everything.
Yep.
And then we're just like, we're just there. And like, if you mentally, like the people that don't, like I was just in Hong Kong at Shopify. They asked me to speak for a small event there, like Ecommerce Day. And I was talking to a couple ladies after, and they were just like, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this because I have to get this done first, and this and this and this. And it was all like small things, like possibly a letter from, a bigger organization, just like to scare you. And that is like the proponent. I think that's like the biggest barrier for like getting into business entrepreneurship. If you can't get past that stage, you're never going to be able to continue, right?
Well,
You're
it's
never
the easiest one too. You're delaying yourself on speculation,
Right.
Right, like that's a
All
horrible place to
speculation.
be. So
Yeah.
it's like I think me and Shane have like a thing where it's like, what's the worst that can happen? It's cease and desist. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, because at the end of the day, like there's not many things where you can, unless you're giving people stuff that they can consume and die from. Like, what's the fucking worst that's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Like nothing.
And you kind of want to take on these big problems early anyway. Like
Yeah.
you do want to run into these big roadblocks early
Yeah.
on. You're going to learn the most as quickly as
I
possible.
mean, I'd rather not, but yeah,
Yeah,
you're,
yeah,
you're,
definitely
you're
rather
right.
not,
You're right.
but-
100%.
Yeah. So did you end up shutting the store down? Or what'd you
The
do?
store got shut down, but it was funny. Like I asked my dad, he's a small business owner in Waterdown, like a farm. And he's like, it's just they're trying to play with you. I'm like, but it's legit. Like it's like a thing.
Yeah.
It's got my name on it. Like,
You know where I live.
yeah. And then Dad was like, just wait a couple of weeks, and then they sent another one, and then I'm just like, Dad, like I need to get a lawyer, and he's like, nah, don't worry, I'll call them. And then
Really?
and like he's gone through so much stuff in terms of like business and like so many hard times in the business for like lawsuits and just so many stupid things that he's like an expert. Like he called Zippo, the like attorney, and he's like, hello, I'm so and so, I'm the representative of, these are my clients. Like if I heard it and I didn't think it was like a farm, like a small business owner, I would think it was like legit because he recorded it, gave it to me after. And he's just like, yeah, this is just a small miscommunication. They haven't even made money from it. They're just a small startup, and they're like they will shut it down. But he said something like, but you know, and I know that if we draw this out, there's no money here. So it's best that you guys just retract your claim, but we will give you, we will tell you, and we will shut it down. So that's what I did.
Yep. Good
Was
stuff.
that like a patent thing or?
Yeah, it was a patent thing. It was like a design thing, but then also what they wanted, like what they wanted all financials. They wanted, because they wanted to get paid out for all the sales that we made, and I'm just like, man, this thing made like 250, and I can't. There's no way. Like over the last
the
3
money's
months, and
gone,
I'm just
yeah.
like, I'm like, yeah. That's why I was more scared, was because like they made the claim for the money. But in hindsight, like it's just like time will
That's
solve
business,
everything.
you know?
Yeah.
I think the reality is if we all stay in business for the rest of our lives, we're going to hit situations similar to that, but much bigger.
Oh, 10 times.
You know? Well, I was just watching that new Netflix documentary on Bill Gates. He got sued by the U.S. government.
Oh my
Like, we think we have it bad being sued by these other businesses, like, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like if I ever got to that point, dude, and if I'm just like, I don't want to do that. Like, I would just be like, I'm gonna go somewhere else. I don't need to live here anymore. Like, fuck it. I got enough money. Like, I find it hard to believe I would ever fight like that, where like the U.S. government, I'd be like, I'm fucking out, dude. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, at that point, like, it's somebody else that's going to be fighting them for you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but
he
yeah, we
was
take it
sitting on
to-
so
It would
much
still-
money.
I think it would still keep you up at night. That's the thing, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I just don't see.
I think I agree with that, and I think the it's not necessarily the money, but I think it's more of like the impact that it'll have on the people in his organization.
Right.
And I think that's like someone that has built an amazing business and that has disposable income. They're no longer worried about someone taking money from them because they know they're capable in order to get there. But what they're worried about, and I would say the same thing, because a couple situations happened in our company where it was like pretty close to like, okay, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs if this continues. And I think like a big proponent of that is, if you get sued by the government, like that's not only going to hurt you, but that's going to hurt whatever the 100,000 people that he's employing.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
And that would keep me up at night,
Right.
like 100%.
Yeah.
Also, then you're allocating all these resources to fighting this lawsuit that could be allocated towards building the business.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I'm spending whatever, $5 million on lawyers. Like, how many jobs can that create?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, man.
So,
how did you go from the Zippo thing to kind of where you are right now with Shopify? and
yeah,
Ecom?
so I had a few, I had another big story after that. So that was a winning product. I had the hats that were winning product. I had a couple small things. Like I had like an ear wax remover winning product. I'm sure you guys all seen
Earwax
this.
remover. Yeah.
Yeah, you just it's like a little thing you put it in and pull it out. Like it's so dangerous. Like I would never sell that again. But that was another store that I scaled and then I shut down. And then my biggest store was the blackhead masks. Have you seen the blackhead mask? Blackhead mask is like a charcoal mask that you put on your face.
Oh, black.
You definitely.
Yeah, I've seen those.
And it pulls out the blackheads?
Yeah, it pulls out
Yeah.
the blackhead.
Okay.
And so I saw that and I'm like, whoa, if that works, I totally want to get one of those because I'm like, I would say I'm pretty insecure about how the way I look and I pay attention to myself and I love looking at myself in the mirror. Like I would say like I don't know. That's one
Number
of my
one
things.
hobby.
Yeah, that's number one hobby. Wake up and be like, wow, this beautiful piece of meat. No, but so what I saw that and I'm like, this is a winning product. Because by the time I'd already seen a couple things and I'm like, if that stirs an emotion and insecurity in me, I'm like, whoo, that's going to be something that is going to take off. And then I did some digging and then I saw on like Google Trends, like it was already like a huge spike and it crashed. So I'm like, it's just been like destroyed by like other drop shippers. And then I'm like, what can I do to like change this up? And I was reading a couple things on, like just reforming a campaign on how it is, but targeting similar demographics. But what I did was I was looking for video content because what I would do is I would like find different pieces, chop them all up and put them into a new video ad. So I was really good at like finding a winning product, finding like 100 different videos and taking out that small segment from every single one and putting it into a video and then running ads against that. What I did was I realized that I stumbled upon a couple of videos where there were a couple of barbershops in Chicago or somewhere that were doing it for men. And I was like, good night. Like this is like, whoo. Like this is, I was so excited. I was like right away, put everything up. I never targeted one like lady in my ads. It was all men. And then I targeted like barbershop owners with a video and different things and different like, and that just like completely blew up. I had like 50 million views on that specific ad. It was just like amazing. I scaled like huge. And then what happened was I got stuck with like the biggest thing that entrepreneurs get and dropshippers and people that are scaling fast is like cash flow.
Yeah.
Like I would say, and that's what I said at Shopify was like the biggest thing that we will deal with always is cash flow, right? It's the same thing with same reason why people like raise money. And like the only reason they raise money is because they know they can grow fast, but they can't grow. They don't have enough cash to do that. So they need working capital. They need to raise the money. And so what happened was I got destroyed. I got completely destroyed. I had like over 150 grand stuck in PayPal that was frozen for 280 days. I was calling, like I was freaking out too because I didn't have any infrastructure. Like I scaled this and I'm like, this is the pinnacle of business and figuring out the algorithm. And this is the high of my, like the highest point of my life directly to like the lowest point of my life where I was getting like death threats, like thousands of emails every single day of people saying, hey, where's my product? Where's my product? Where's my product?
Yeah.
And then not enough money to pay suppliers, or suppliers didn't have enough product, or the stuff that they were sending out was not the right thing. And it's just like absolutely the worst situation ever. Like I don't have credit anymore, like because of that situation. And like, yeah, it was so messy. Anyway, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, kind of elaborate on your point. I feel like just so many early entrepreneurs have to go through that. It's like right when you get on a roller coaster of like doing business, the roller coaster starts usually a lot of the times with like a big up, and you're like, it's just going to keep going. This is awesome. And then it inevitably comes back down and you're like, holy shit, my life is over. Yeah. And then it goes up again and down again. And at the end of it, you can see it in a macro lens, right? Where it's like, okay, this is just how business is. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, and I'm going to figure out the issues and the problems along the way. And then you're not as affected by it emotionally, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But,
and it's like something that needs to happen. And like a lot of people say that it's better to learn from other people's mistakes. And I would definitely say that, but for me, it's really hard to learn from other people's mistakes. But I learned so well from my own mistakes, like, or maybe not even. I think I'd still repeat a lot of mistakes, but yeah. Anyway, that was really hard.
Cash flow is difficult, man. So at this point, are you still drop shipping, or were you holding inventory?
No,
yet?
I never held inventory.
Okay. Oh, still
never held inventory. And I think it was a good thing that I didn't hold inventory because I was in and out of a lot of different things. And anyway, that time, after that time, that's when I moved back home. and like it was a really rough go for me. Like that was the time in my life that I experienced like I was always the person that was like mental health issues. That's totally like not a thing. I was always like ripping on everybody that was dealing with depression and stuff. I was that farm boy that was like tough, right?
Yeah.
And so like I got hit with like major like anxiety and depression and stuff like that, and that was very important in my journey because I needed to go through that in order to realize, like, to give me more self-awareness. They're like, hey, like, yeah. But I couldn't do anything. Like, I couldn't do anything, and I had everything, everybody after me. But I would say for me, it wasn't like when people come after me, that's totally fine. What happened was, the biggest stressor was, like my parents were getting calls at like 1 o'clock in the morning from random people in like different parts of the world saying, hey, I bought this product and it never came and I got scammed. And like that, like, I don't wish that on anybody. And just thinking back to that moment, that was like the hardest, like, cause you know, like we're all entrepreneurs and we can take a lot of risk. Right. But we don't want to risk the people that we love.
If anything, you're taking the risk to try to mitigate all of everyone
100%,
pain, right? That's like the main drivers. Like, you're taking all this risk that they don't have to do any of that shit, right?
Yeah. And so that was just hard. But and that brought so much self-awareness. Where like, whew, like this is legit. Yeah. People actually struggle with this. Actually, people need help. And so I got out of it, obviously. And then I tried to start a local drink business called Maple Aid. It was a healthy. It was like maple syrup. It's not maple syrup. It's like maple sap, maple water. And like,
I think this is the first time I ever saw you.
Yeah, is that where?
Yeah, so I think
where did we meet?
What I was doing. I don't think I didn't meet you until about probably like a year ago now.
Yeah.
But I think so what I was doing was I was at the point where I was running like my first business. I was probably when were you doing that? You were probably doing that like
a couple of years ago,
3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, something like that.
It was definitely when I was still probably like in Brantford, I hadn't moved to Toronto yet.
Yeah.
And I was just Googling, or I was searching on LinkedIn for like entrepreneur, and then looking at like Hamilton, Brantford, blah blah blah. And I was going through that situation where, I don't know, when you're trying to be an entrepreneur, you go out and you search for people that and you're just seeing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Or like you're trying to like message them, being like, hey, can I meet with you? All that kind of shit. And I was like deep in doing that. That's kind of all I do with like my free time. I wanted to learn and all this kind of shit. And I think that was the first time I ever saw you, was like on LinkedIn, and it was like, I remember that maple drink, and then I think I followed you on Instagram. I think that's
pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yes, LinkedIn.
Gotta love the internet.
Straight up LinkedIn. Yeah,
Beautiful.
I was literally just looking for people that had entrepreneur as their business, as their job title, or business owner on LinkedIn.
And now we're here sitting doing
that's insane.
epic podcast.
Yeah, super. And they got now doing completely different things, not selling maple drinks and not yeah.
So how did the maple drinks thing?
I was terrible. Like, it went. I spent a lot of time. That was like a rebound,
right?
A huge rebound from like the destruction. I'm like, now I'm gonna build a brand, and it's gonna be amazing, and it's gonna be actually a good product with sustainability and actually help people because it was healthy. And I'm like, the world is gonna love it because when you build a good product, people will come. And like, it totally like fizzled out. And it was just I mean, on the outside it looked amazing, right. But then that was like the first time I really put out to people what I was doing. I'm like, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm building this brand, and I made myself really vulnerable. And when you make yourself really really vulnerable, it like, you know, you'll get a lot of attacks, right? You'll get a lot of positivity and a lot of attacks. And so I got surprisingly, I got a lot of attacks from people in my family and other people, because it was just like, this person is striving for success. And naturally, I think people who, you know, have quit on their dreams then will say not so nice things to people that are trying to go out there.
Definitely.
So
it's a big barrier to get through. Yeah. I feel like my family's been pretty good with it. The things that I feel like hurt more are when you hear about it happening behind your back.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah. Because it's also like, I feel like it's the worst when you're like, you're in that point where you're like, if they only fucking knew.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's because you can't go out and be like, oh, blah, 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 but you can't do that.
Yeah.
But it's almost just like, fuck, if they only knew, you know?
yeah,
Like it's just like,
They only knew the struggles.
Okay, this is a pivotal moment though, because I feel like this really like separates the people, separates the men from the boys, right? Because it's like, how do you take this in? How do you process this now? Is this like, oh fuck, maybe they're right, like I shouldn't do this, or is it the opposite of like, I'll fucking show them?
Yeah, or it's
right?
like, I knew you were a hater. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that's huge. Like, I think it's so important to deal with those sort of things, like, and actually deal with it, because then it like builds tough skin, right? Like it builds like.
Yeah, there's just so
You can
many
take anything.
instances where you have to be vulnerable because the feedback is so open nowadays. You put a
Oh,
YouTube
yeah.
video out, like you're getting that instant right away,
yeah,
that hate,
seeing that.
now, right?
anyone who has time to be giving that kind of feedback isn't going to be giving good constructive feedback anyway.
Right,
like,
for sure.
Like at the end of the day, like I know I don't have time to be like looking at what people are doing and like talking about like shitty things. Like on like all of my focus is on like, all right, what's they doing? Oh, that's awesome. Or like, how would we do that differently? Like it's always like building on top of, not trying to like tear down. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with criticizing, but you should always be building on top of an idea, not just like completely taking it out of the knees.
Yeah,
right?
and you have to see where it's coming from too, and the person who is coming from too as well, right? If you respect that person and their critiques, then you really should. I think that's where self-awareness comes in, because you have to understand that there's going to be a lot of critiques from people that have absolutely no idea what they're doing. And especially you guys as like hyper creatives that have, in my opinion, like beautiful style and like design and that sort of stuff. Like if I got criticism from you guys, I'd be like, yeah, thanks. That's like free advice. But if I got criticism from someone like that they didn't really have a style that was like, in my opinion, good, or had no background in business, or had no background in this, but just an opinion, like people should not listen to that at all.
I think I always like to think, like, unless you're getting the critique from someone that you want to be in some aspect, like, unless you look up to that person anyway, like, I don't know how much the critiques should be, like, validated. Unless they're critiquing the product or whatever you're doing exactly, like, on that. But I think personal critiques, like, unless you want to be that person, I find it hard to ever apply those critiques in like a constructive way. So it's like, unless I want to be you in some way or another, or like I admire you for something, like I really those things go over my head, because I have no ability to apply that to myself. Like I can't. Where am I supposed to take that? Like I don't see where it goes. Like if it's coming from you, I got to figure out how does that manifest in you, and like do I actually want that for myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's huge though, to have that as self-awareness. That's like, I mean, that's the key.
Yeah. So you're still in the Toronto area at this point.
Yeah, so I had come back from traveling in Australia, and it was so weird because like I had been sleeping in the back of my car when I wasn't in hospital, like just on an air mat, and I was totally comfortable with that because I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't need like anything to survive. I had in Australia did my first water fast, 8 days, and that even brought
8 days.
That even brought me closer to realizing like, well, people don't actually need food every day. And I was just like, wow, that's crazy. I was like, it was like my like analyzing and like deconstructing how to live as cheap as possible so I could invest every single thing into growth and business. I think that was the biggest thing for me, because now I just, someone said yesterday, there's like, when you're thinking of purchasing something and then you have that second thought of like, if you didn't purchase it, you saved it. For me, I was like, no, I'm 100% paranoid as like, if I bought something or if I paid a lot of money for something, if I didn't do that, what else could I use that money for that would then produce more money? Right? It's like I was traveling with a buddy of mine in Hong Kong, and we're like, oh, we could spend $200 on a hotel, or we could sleep at McDonald's and put that all on ads. It's like, if you have that perspective, right? And we did, and then we made like whatever X amount of dollars from that. So I mean, that was pretty crazy for me as well. Have you guys ever done a water fast?
I haven't, Zach.
I did like a 24-hour like fast, but that's not. I wasn't.
Yeah,
it was just
I feel
24-hour
like that
fast.
doesn't
Like
count.
that doesn't. It's not really a fast. It's more of just like.
I mean, it is, but like I think it's in the context of it. It's meant to like a water fast, is like a long.
Right, like a water fast is like you need water. It's like whereas you
need water.
You can get through a day without.
Like how long
water.
can you go without water? Something like 3 days.
I don't know, something like that.
Oh, we recommend it, but yeah, you can. I think
So how did-
can.
Speaking of water, I'm gonna grab some water. You guys want
grab
water?
some water?
I'm good.
I think I'm good here. You're gonna have to pee soon, but.
You've done it fast or not? You should do it fast. Would you do it fast?
Oh yeah, I'll do anything.
So the thing that's been holding me back is the I've heard a lot of people say like, I don't know what the actual biological function is, but it's really, really hard to sleep. So you don't get a lot of sleep. I don't know. Is that what you found doing the 8-day fast? Is
For what,
difficult
sleeping?
falling asleep? Yeah.
Yeah, I think more of like the mental clarity. Like in the first 3 days, I think that's when I think it was like day 2 or day 3. That's when your body goes in ketosis, and then you just have a lot of mind fog. And then after like day 5, I mean for me, then it was like massive clarity. Or like day 4, and then it was just like insane clarity.
Really?
Yeah, it was really weird. And I would tell anybody to do it, but then again, I would say like you have to know yourself, and if you think you can't handle it, or like get like supervision or whatever, like I'm not really good at, like when I think of something that I'm like, hey, I want to try this out, then I'll just try it out. And I think I'm a bit reckless for that, but I think everybody should do a water fast 100%. Because and then it's like it's like a mind over matter thing, right? Because your body is going to be telling you the first couple days that like you're dying. Right. It's going to be like, you're dying.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so once you get over that, then that's when you can be like, wow, I actually have like mental power. Yeah, I think it's the same thing when you do the ice.
The ice tubs, anything like that is so, anything where you can get to that point. I think the interesting thing with the water fast is that it's passive action. You know, like whereas like if you have to keep running, it's active action, but like not eating is like passive action. So I think in any way, sometimes it can even be harder because it's just like, you know, it's there's nothing there. You're not actually pushing yourself to do anything. You're pushing yourself to not do something. I think it probably challenges discipline more than something that would be like active action. But I think anything that challenges you for your mind, like and day physically. To day, it's like, okay, where can I take this power and then deploy it against something else, right? Anything like that is so powerful.
I think I would say too, from the past few years, like that is a very big proponent to success. Like to do hard things. And a lot of people will say this too, and it's really cliche, but I really believe like you have to do hard things in order to grow. Like doing my carnivore thing, like I had to do that to lose pounds, right? Yeah. And I had to do that to then come to the realization, then I need to clean up my diet. I need to be more, I need to be more focused on what am I actually doing, and how am I like, you know, energy in versus energy out, and what are my actual goals through that. But when I see you guys doing crazy things like cold plunges and stuff, that inspires me as well.
It's also fun. Like I feel like we both get bored so fucking easily that it's like
all entrepreneurs get really bored.
Like the day-to-day life is like fuck. Like it's like, well, what can we do to like inject radical fun in this? And I think with entrepreneurs, it very rarely manifests itself in like partying, because like then you can't work the next day. It's like, how can we get that adrenaline rush or like that, I don't know, spice to your life with it still being able to like, okay, now we're going back to work to actually like move the needle, right?
Yeah, it's a really practical point. It doesn't even really matter what you do that's hard. Just do something hard. And I bet if you asked a group of 100 people, like, what's something hard you've done recently? I don't know. It's probably something like 10% of them would have done something like really, really hard.
It, right?
Or they're just like, I went for a walk. That was hard.
Well, like, I mean, I think the interesting thing is always asking someone like, what's the hardest thing you've ever done? Yeah. Like I always ask that on a first date. It's like, that's one of my like key first date questions.
Or that's a really good first interview question too, when you're hiring too.
Yeah. Like, what's the hardest thing you've ever done? I feel like then you get to know that person like really, really well. Cause like if there's one, if they can't figure out how to like come up with it, they probably didn't learn anything from it, right? Like,
they don't have enough pain that the memory's there. You know?
So it's like it's an I think it's a great.
Then you can see if someone's surface level or they actually have dealt with hard things or whatever. Right?
Yeah, just and builds character.
Most of us have lived in a pretty fucking easy life, right? Like it's like compared to, so it's like how much like. You have to go out of your way to do this. You have to be someone that's willing to do that, because you can go your whole life with really just scraping by, especially if you're born in Canada. Like it is so easy.
We are so fortunate, like so lucky to be born in Canada. Yeah. This is why I think everybody should travel, like to a third world country by themselves.
Right.
100%. Like I would say, like biggest takeaway prescription drug to do something is travel by yourself to a third world country, because then it puts it into perspective. Like I came back on Friday and I heard a couple people complaining at the airport. I'm like, man, why are you complaining? You have it so well off, but it's just because they don't know. Yeah, right. It's not on them that they're selfish people or they're always complaining. It's just they just haven't realized that they're so fortunate.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, always every time I'm back from China, I have that same thing. In the airport right away. Like
Yeah.
you notice that there's way less crowds
Yeah.
immediately upon landing. It's like the other day I came home from China. I was standing in like the terminal and I was like, oh my God, it's so empty in here. It's so
Yeah.
luxurious. Like you're just used to in China, just crowds and
Yeah.
crowds of people in
Yeah.
heat and everything. And yeah, we have it really good here. So how are you finding it living in Asia now?
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, so the reason why, so I'll give like the biggest reason why I moved out to Asia. One of the reasons was I hired my first employee, which was a VA, and he was from the Philippines. And I had tried to hire a couple of people or convince a couple of people to work for me in Canada. It didn't work out, or they worked for a little bit and then they complained. And this gentleman was just like amazing. And I was just like, wow, this is how I'm going to be able to build an amazing business. And also a huge proponent of it was cost, right? Cost per startup. I didn't have what I needed to start up the Maple Aid, the maple drink business that I had was I needed 10 grand. I needed 10 grand to have 10,000 units of my drink. Okay. And I had already been like 15 grand deep. Now this was after I had made a ton of money, but then it got eaten up from credit cards and like disputes and everything, right? And I was like, wow, like I don't even have 10 grand to do this maple business.
What was that feeling watching that number just slowly get eaten away? Did you watch it day to day? Was that when you were in like that depression kind of mode?
Yeah,
Were you watching it?
Oh, I watched, and that was like you know when reality bleeds, like you know death is easy when you just get shot in the face, but when you're bleeding out from your neck, like shit, that's painful, right? That's cruel,
right?
And so like that was the predicament that I was in, where I was watching like all this money that I had made, quote unquote made,
right,
and never been able to touch it ever, right? That's just a number on a screen. And I'm like, whoo, like the reality hit me where I'm like, okay, I mean, you could make a couple $1,000,000, but if you only have 1% or minus 10% of that, like it's better to make 100 grand and make like 20% of that than you know, such a big number. And yeah, that was a big realization. But then doing the maple drink business, like that was just like hard and that was like hard, like getting like the formulation, and like I put a lot, like I was making calls every single day, like I was putting like blood, sweat, and tears into that. And because I also told everybody, I'm like, this is gonna be it's gonna be on every single shelf ever. And I had been inspired. So my cousin, who's now in business, we do business together. His name is Sebastian Vorman, and his grandpa came over here and he started Vorman Cookies, which is you can find Vorman Cookies in every single store ever.
Okay.
And they just sold. They got acquired. And I was always like, wow, that is like, they did it with cookies, so why can't I do it with the drink? Like consumables. I'm like, this is amazing. There's like it's a real brand. And I just put everything. And then I told everybody too, I'm like, this is going to be the greatest thing that is out there. And like for that not to happen, especially in the family that I'm in, it's like, yeah, it was hard.
So how did you find the point where you thought, you know, this isn't going to work the way that I thought it was?
In terms of
like with the maple syrup business, you're saying that there was a point where you're like, this isn't going to be what I thought it was going to be originally.
Yeah, so like when I had to spend, like when I had to get 10,000 units, and I actually had a purchase order from like a standing purchase order from Goodness Me to put it into their 9 locations. And so there was that crossover where like, okay, now I need to, I've got this 9-store chain. I've got this drink. It just needs to be, it's already formulated. It just needs to be put in. I need to get it produced. And then I had all the things lined up, and they were just like, okay, this is going to take, it's going to be 3 months until you get the thing. You need 10 grand here. You need 10 grand here. And then it's going to be another, you need to find a distributor. And there was just so many pieces that I had to like line up. And the cost of that, well, it was like, I'm not going to see a return until like 3 years or like 2 years. And then what I did was I went down to like small business. I tried to get a loan. Obviously, I couldn't because I had blown my credit score. Right. Then then there was grants like a small business grant of five grand here, 10 grand here. And I wrote a whole business plan, and I put so much energy, and then I ended up, what happened was I didn't even get it. Like I got told that my business model wasn't good enough. So I was just getting no's after no's after no's after no's. And then I realized, like, okay, this is going to take a long time. I know the success that I had before, which is really important. If I didn't have that, I probably would have given up and probably worked for someone. But I had, like, there was so many more pieces that I had lined up. Now that I think back, I just had to get a few more pieces, and I had to get money, and I didn't get the money. So if I got the 10 grand, if I got the 15 grand, that would have launched onto, like, the way I look at it now, if I went there, it would have literally launched me into a spiraling death hole that would just eat me up and like take all my money. Because like, and hats off to any entrepreneur that is in the retail space that has a product that they've been able to get into stores and all that stuff. Because I've been through that. And if there's anybody listening that's in that right now, like, hats off to you, and you're killing it. Because I've been through that, and it was the hardest business I've ever been in my life, like in terms of everything. It's just crazy. I even went down to like a couple conventions, and everybody's like, yeah, it's good. I was trying to get distribution in the States. It's just a lot of work, just a lot. And then so I just had a moment of realization where I was like, hey, listen, I got to go back into e-commerce, and I got to go back into drop shipping, and I got to go back into this model where the barrier to entry is a lot lower. And then I got to move. I was like, I did a lot of research on, okay, what's the best place to do it? I'm like, Asia's the best place to do it, because I got China, and I've got the Philippines, and I got India. And in terms of like employment and building a creative team, that's the cheapest place to do it in terms of sales and everything like that. And I'm like, let's go. And I packed my bags, booked a flight for a week later, and I went and I visited the one employee that I had at the time in the Philippines.
So what was that like?
That was weird.
Yeah.
Like that was like wow. I was like, I got off the plane.
How long have you been working with this guy before you went and
like
met
3
him?
weeks. And I told
this is nice and fresh.
yeah, or like a month maybe.
Okay.
And or on and off. And then I told him, I said, hey, I'm gonna calm down, we're gonna partner up, and we're gonna build this amazing company. I told him, and then a week later I was there.
And does this guy still work for you?
No, unfortunately not. Like it got really messy. Like we built up a team, then it like was so many. Like it was a bad partnership. Like I was hyper growth, and he was really conservative. So he's not really. He's a super smart guy. We're not really an entrepreneur in terms of taking risk. And he couldn't manage the team, which is totally fine. But I think he's doing well now, as he had just had the smaller mindset. It got really messy. But then we parted ways. He took a few of the clients that we had, because we started doing client work, outsourcing, then that was the next step in the journey.
So like now do you think you always want to be stationed out of? Like, do you like the lifestyle, like outside of business? Yeah. Lifestyle wise, like what's your lifestyle? Like, is like food good and stuff? Like,
yeah, food. I mean, it's you got to find it, right?
Right.
Like, there's some really bad food here, but you got to find the good places, right?
For sure. Yeah.
So stationed out there, like my dream is to have like a global company. That's why our company used to be called Apollo Creative Group. Now it's Atlas Creative Group, and that has a lot of subsidiaries underneath it. That's like the umbrella corporation. And so we've got different brands, and I want to create service companies, and like we're really working on, like it's all over the place. Yeah. But my dream is to have like a global company that impacts like lives around the world and works with businesses around the world as well. Right. So it's not specifically catered to Asia. Asia is just the best place in terms of like product, because you got China, which everything is built in China. And that was a big thing too, because coming from retail or like producing a product here in Canada, I was like, wow, there's like so much. There's like, you can't do it. Yeah.
It's interesting seeing that too. And it's like, I think that a lot of people who aren't in business, they don't realize, one, how cheap it is to make things, but like also everything that's in between making that product and actually getting into someone's hands. Like it costs more to get into the hands than it does to actually fucking make it. And then if you even try to make it here or anything like that, like unless you're competing in like the luxury,
or you have deep pockets,
for sure. Like I mean, but even like the cost of goods, right? Like unless you're competing like with like luxury brands, right? You're not gonna make something that's affordable for people here.
Yeah, that's a huge. It's crazy. And I tried it, right? Like I tried it with the drink, and it was hard. I like, if I think of it, if I had, let's say, 500 grand at the time, or 150 grand, 200 grand, I could have pushed it, but then I probably could have run out of money again as well, right? Down the road. Then I would have been in a deeper situation.
Right. So right now, with where you're at, you said you're doing a little bit of client services. You're doing essentially like a lot. You're very wide. What do you like spending your time doing?
I love building brands.
Okay.
I love sales, and I love building teams. Cool. Like that is my I made that huge pivotal moment after. So I went to Asia. Then I had this partnership. Then I broke that off. And that moment, I was like, okay, for me, no more client work right now. We're going to focus on what I love doing, which is building brands. And I'm like, we are going to figure this out. And so that's where we took off. That's what I love doing. We do service business as well. We've got an outsourcing company called Atlas Support. We work with a couple small, organizations. We actually have one of our cool guys from Canada. You guys probably know them. You know Nelk? Do you know Nelk?
Yeah.
The Nelk boys?
Yeah.
So we do all their customer support when they do drops and stuff like that. Actually, I was in the States when they did their last drop, which was April 1st, I think. April 1st or maybe June 1st. Mm-hmm. And they broke Shopify, did 2.5 million in 1 hour.
Jesus.
Fuck.
What did they drop? What were they selling?
Merch, like clothing.
2.5, and
That's
actually,
fucked.
I'm not really supposed to say this because I was at, I bought our brand, the acquisition that we just had, Mellow, Wear Mellow on Instagram, the leggings brand, and I was in Columbus at the time, and the agency that they're working with that's doing all their merch, because of our relationship, that's why we're doing all the support. They as I was driving down there, they're just like, this is gonna take a little bit longer because they broke Shopify, like their whatever the apps that they had on there, just like 2.5 big ones in 1 hour
with like no ad spend, probably.
No ad spend at all. And I think they had like $2,000 on ad spend just for like a follow up, and it's because they pushed it, and they had people in the checkout, like they oversold. They I think they had like only 2 million in terms of inventory. They oversold.
That's
and like our team, because I went back to Asia like 2 weeks later after that, and it was like, I feel sorry for some of the guys that purchased like some of their fan base, because our team was dealing with like people that like a month and a half later didn't get stuff, right? Because they're just like, when you get hit with that, like I knew it was gonna happen.
Yeah.
So like our customer service, like we do all their customer support. We had 10 or 15 people on their account for that for like a month.
That's
and
a lot
half.
of people.
Yeah, a month and a half. Well, just think of it, like the amount of they had like 80,000 people at one time on Google Analytics. Like I saw their 80,000 people one time, like at one moment.
Imagine 80,000 people in a room.
Yeah, that's not possible.
It's a Rogers Center.
Yeah.
Not what the Rogers Center is. What, like
it might be less than that.
No, it's like 30. No, it's got.
I have no idea.
It's 30,000 because like Grant Cardone just had his 10X conference in a stadium in the States, and it fit 35,000 people.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like
80,000 people.
It's a lot of people.
80,000 people is a lot of people.
So how's it been with that support agency that you've built out? It was something Zach and I were considering.
Yeah.
As we were building out support for multiple brands, we're like, this could definitely be a service that could be offered to people.
Yeah, it's really important. Like we are trying to focus now on getting bigger clients. So like for us, it's not profitable, because what we do is the difference between us and like, let's say Upwork. If you go to Upwork, you're going to hire 1 or 2 people. It's hard to build a team, but we are trying to focus on, for that business specifically, like Atlas Support, it would be more of like someone that wants a 24-hour support team. So whether that being like inbound calls, whether it being emails, and live chat specifically. Not so much calls. We don't really like doing calls because there's that other element for it. Live chat's amazing, but having that 1 minute, 2 minute response time for any business is super important. And then also having that that live chat, like that accessibility to a human, right? To answer any specific questions. Because the amount of times that I've gone on websites and I'm just like, man, all I want to do is now talk to just one person. I don't want to have to look through 20 pages, or I don't have to even look through like the Q&A section to figure out what my answer is. I just want to ask somebody and get a response, and then I'll make the purchase decision. Right. So we see that over the next little while being built out. But I would say is you can work with an agency, but at the end of the day, it's probably better to just build your own infrastructure out there. Like if you have the time and if you have the money and if you have the push, I would say 100%, because I'm always looking at the way what I did. And that's a business that we have. We don't really make a lot of money there. But if someone really wants to like scale or have something scalable, it's really a good idea to just go down to Asia and maybe open up a company and set up a outsourcing company for yourselves there.
Yeah, customer service no doubt plays like such a huge factor into the experience that e-commerce brands are giving to their customers. So out of because I'm seeing like all these videos on Instagram of like a ton of employees that you have in the Philippines. So where are you employing all these people into your business? Yeah.
So right now, it's by the way, it's really cool for me even to like think about it, that our team has gotten to the point where it's at, because I remember like when we had one person, 2 people, 3 people, 5 people, 10 people, and even at 10 people, I was like, wow, like this is cool. Like, but what there was a big thing that changed for me, and like we saw hyper growth in our company when I chose to change my mindset in how I do business, and that was first seeing how many people we could impact, rather than looking at our top line net, looking at our gross, and looking at what ways that I can deploy that extra money that we have into growing and scaling. So over the last 2 years, we've never made $1. Like we've never netted more than 10 grand. So over the last 2 years, we've never netted more than 10 grand. So in our business bank account, everything has always injected back into this system in order to hiring teams and building teams like that, or building on new ideas. And we've lost a lot of money, like a lot of money on growth. But if you look at it, the big picture, then that's what's gotten us to where we are. So we're about 200 people as of now in our Philippines office. And then just about 15 to 20 people in China. That influxes and goes up and down based on the amount of products that we ship out and stuff like that. In the Philippines, our goal is to, by Christmas, so 2 months, our goal is to have like 500 people in our team. So we just got a new office. And that's just us getting started. Like I would love to see us have like 10 or 20 or even 100,000 employees in the next 10 years. And that is not specifically in one location, but in multiple different locations, and then also remote. And I think that like, if you asked me last year, even saying that would make me uncomfortable, because I was like, whoa, that's a really crazy number. That's like getting to the next level of a thing. But that mentality is what's gotten us to where we are today. Like the only thing, because remember, like now I know what I need to live, which is not a lot, right? I know that I have to give more than I want to receive. And I know that every single person that's built an actual billion-dollar company, or like a heavy company, they only own a certain percentage of that company, right? If you look at Amazon, Jeff, how much does he own now, right? He
50% less after the divorce.
Yeah, exactly. I was just gonna say, like he had what? He had maybe 10 or 20%. Now it's like half of that, right? Zuckerberg, like what, 16%? Like all these people, and I think that's the formula is you have to give as much as you can. So right now I'm in the mode of like partnership all the time, as much as possible, and then scale. How much can we? How big can we grow this? And that's been empowering. Like, so my full-time job is just to like empower people. Like I never do any like practical things. Like we've got a board in the Philippines and in China. That was the biggest thing. I never see any of the money. I never touch any of the money. All employees get paid. And then there are people that are smart enough in order to handle the distribution of that both. I just make sure like we grow, and that's pretty cool. But in terms of going back to your question, sorry, such a long answer, was they do a variety of things.
Because it sounds
support.
like they're not just doing customer support,
Yeah.
as most people who are hiring in the Philippines do. Like you have them doing some higher level stuff, right?
Let me just go to the washroom. and
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
talk
you
about
can,
that.
absolutely can. Yeah. I'm interested to hear, like, how one goes from like hiring all these people that you have in the Philippines to like now where do you get the management levels when you have to start like building out the structure, right?
It's the only thing that enables scale. You can keep hiring.
You can't manage all these people.
You can't manage all those
yeah,
people,
which is where I feel like we are at with some of the businesses. It's like there's a lot of good people, but there might be lacks of like communication or somebody looking over it waiting on approval for things.
Days when people do nothing. Like we had that yesterday. You know, like we got to our end of our day and we're ready to hand something off. Overseas where like they're starting their day and it's just like, well, we're fucking tapped out. We don't even have the energy to delegate. So I'd be interested to see like how he does this, because I think that's like, if we want to if we do decide to like grow more in Asia, I think that's the key to it. I think you can always hire those low level employees. It's like, but how can you like actually make sure that they're producing as much as possible?
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like going there and just like really building relationships with those people is going to be
I say that like I'm not excited to. I
it's
love
not a
traveling.
bad place to be, like the Philippines.
No, I actually look forward to it.
Yeah.
It's just maybe I feel like winter time is a better time to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Summertime, I don't want to be there.
You want to be here.
I want to be here in the summer.
Yeah. Philippines wonder what it's like there in the winter. It's probably just still hot.
Yeah. Honestly, anything better than snow for me, to be honest.
Yeah. We got to plan a trip for after Christmas.
After Christmas, after Christmas trip.
Yeah. How far in are we? We've been talking for quite a while.
I think we're about an hour and a bit in.
Yeah.
Beauty.
Yeah.
Probably could wrap this up.
That was like that was like Niagara Falls in there. It's crazy. We're in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were just talking about management of the employees in the Philippines, then also kind of like making that transition from like right now, all of the only people that we really hire in the Philippines are people that are kind of customer support. I know you have some people doing some more high level stuff. Like I think you have someone doing like email and stuff, but like nothing that's nothing that you can kind of like let run, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, not super high level management at this point, which sounds like you've got a good kind of structure built out there.
Yeah, I mean I'm really fortunate, and like people. Like when people ask me or they say like, whoa, like what you've done is crazy, I would say like I didn't really do it. Like I just found people that were that had similar visions and wanted to grow, and then they came along and did that with me and our company. And that's how I know that we're gonna get from here where we are to the next level. And I wouldn't say that like that's just because of me. That's not because of me, and that's because of like everybody in the company. And in terms of like hiring people that have higher level of management skill, I think it's really important to like go down there, because people that have higher level management skill, they're not probably not necessarily on Upwork or on a freelance website, right? And so I think that's pretty cool. But finding people that are similar to you and their beliefs and their growth plans, and people that are really hungry, right? And other entrepreneurs that are okay with being entrepreneurs that are like entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
So
that's cool, man.
Yeah.
It sounds like you also had some people that they're doing like outbound sales calls.
Oh yeah. So that's where we were gonna go into, right? Just
I think that's
sure.
Super.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, so a big aspect, like our I would say maybe 60% or 70% of people in our office are sales. And so we do a couple different things. We do social selling. We don't do any outbound calls. We do outbound emails. We do outbound social, and that's to drive traffic and awareness to the brands. It's also to find partners. It's also to find like investors, different sort of things. But we have like an extremely high churn for people, like turnover of salespeople. So like on next Monday, we'll have like 50 people come into the office, and like 20 people will stay after that. And then 10 people will stay after 1 or 2 weeks. And then there'll be 5 after a month or 2 months.
So you mean like you're filtering these people for like the employees that you want to keep around?
Right. Well, it's just like system. So, okay, maybe I'll just give a little backstory on like another proponent for growth, because I think this is really important. When I went to the Philippines, I met a gentleman who had a very successful business. He had like 500 employees, or he still has, in the States, in Vegas, and then like 1,000 or 2,000 in the Philippines and Asia, and then Bulgaria. Just amazing business. And what he does is he has an agency working with small businesses. He also does a lot of cold selling, and it's telemarketing. So he's always calling. His team is calling people every day, right? Like hundreds of calls every day. And then I asked him like, how did you do that? I'm like, how can someone grow like such a big team? And he said, like, you have to have system and processes, and then you just have to fill the pipeline, right? And I think that's like the biggest thing, the biggest proponent. And naturally, I'm not that type of person. I'm just like, just do this, and that's how you do it, and that, like, I suck at writing things down and like formulating. And so what I did was, after that, I just was like, hey, listen, like, if this can work on calls, this can work on social, and this can work on emails and stuff like that, just like cold selling anything. And so we do that to drive traffic for the brands. But what I did was I created scripts, I worked on it, and then I proved it myself, and then I applied that, and we hired people on, and then we're just like, hey, this works. But and this works like, sales work anywhere, but you just have to make sure that at the end of the day that you're positive, right? Because it's hard to hire a salesperson here. I mean, it's expensive. It's not hard.
Right.
It's really expensive, and you don't know if they're going to be able to perform. And so that's just the simple equation that,
So it comes down to the processes that you build, right?
Yeah,
coming all the way back to sales at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, on the way here, like I do, like we've got a couple group chats with like everybody in the company, and so I try to record a video once a day or once when I can. And so I did a video like driving up here, and I'm like, all right, guys, so I'm filling. I hope you guys are doing great. Yada yada yada. A couple updates, and I'm like, all right, now I'm going to Toronto. I'm working on filling my pipeline. And my pipeline is getting more awareness and content for the company, for our movement, right? And who knows who's going to be listening to this podcast and what sort of value this will bring. But it's just taking action. And it goes back to what we were talking about before, too. It's just like, take the opportunity. And when you were messaging me, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so booked out for time. But then you're like, podcast, and I'm like, let's do this. Let's go.
Absolutely, man. That's what I think. That's one of the reasons why we really want to start the podcast, right? Like, I think everybody that we want to talk to is busy as fuck, right? So it's like we want to give them some sort of value as well.
Oh,
with the
and
podcast,
listen,
right?
like I've thought of this too, but the position that you guys are in right now, it's like the biggest leverage. Like, have someone on, ask them to share what they want to share, and then if you guys have like now our connection is a lot bigger and a lot stronger, and whether we do business in the future, it's going to help both of us out. But even if you guys had a product to sell or something at the end, but not only for listeners but for the people that you bring on, and you could bring on anybody, right?
Yeah.
And then you have them like in the same situation or scenario, right? Which I think is pretty cool.
Man. It's such a good opportunity to hear like your backstory and like really go deep into it. It's hard to get these kinds of conversations and everyday social interactions, right?
What I would just be in, like, I know we're running a little long here on time, but I think it's totally fine. But I would love to hear, since we're on here, I'm not sure if you guys have shared a bit of your story, maybe in the last podcast, but I know that future people that you guys interview may not ask these questions, but I'd love to hear where you guys started and how you guys connected, like how you guys connect, and how is this happening right now?
Really, I feel like we have actually we dove into this on a podcast that actually got scrapped. I don't think we talked about how we on the what's going to be the first podcast. I think we actually got into that about how we connected.
Yeah, we scrapped, I think, the first episode.
We didn't scrap it. We wanted. It was, it's like the first pancake. It's never good.
Yeah. I'm gonna use that. That is so good.
That was our throwaway
right here.
Pancake.
Let's go. The throwaway pancake.
Yeah.
It's like the first pancake. It's never good.
Yeah. So I mean, I think.
Yeah, Zach, why don't you go into like a bit about your background, how you started in business?
Yeah, so like my background is like I was in high school. Like we'll try
Let's
to keep
go
it
all
super
the
high
way
level, but like
all the way back, all the way back.
Yeah, like in
so
high
you were a
school,
fetus.
Day one. Day one.
I mean, the first kind of like first job I had was a paper route. That's so
Bingo.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, it's so cliche, but it was. I wanted a dirt bike. Didn't have money. My mom's like, if you buy a dirt bike, and I was like, hey, I got a paper route. Started delivering papers. Saved up money. Bought a dirt bike.
Got your
dirt
bike.
And now I love motorcycles. And my mom still fucking hates them. But yeah, and then so that was like the first time I started making money. And then I was in high school, played a ton of sports. Didn't have time to have a job realistically. Like I couldn't work at like a restaurant or something. I would work out in the morning, and then after school I'd have practice. So like I didn't really have time for a job. Broke my leg in grade 10. Was like in the same position as you.
This is what we're coming to.
Yeah.
You're starting from breaking your leg in grade 10.
For sure.
That's a huge. That's a huge part of your sport.
I wouldn't have started my business in high school if I hadn't broke my leg. Because it was the same situation as you, sitting in the hospital. You had nothing to do, but you had a computer. And that's when I started learning Photoshop. I started learning design software. I started learning video editing.
By the way, guys, like this gentleman right here shreds on Photoshop. Like his design skills are insane.
So and just started designing, being at home for a summer with a broken leg, and then started doing client services. Did client services throughout high school, and made enough money that it was like working a part-time job, but I didn't have to go in anywhere. Went away to university.
What is client services in what?
Like design. It was like I was building websites, I was shooting videos, I was just doing like a bunch of creative work. And then went away to university for media production, thought I wanted to direct documentaries. That really quickly became to like I also love money and I love business, and like those two worlds.
You love freedom.
Clash. I love freedom, and like documentary filmmaking wasn't that. And then dropped out of school for a client project that was large, and then kind of after a year of being out of school working on a client project, I dove full into like doing client services full time as like through Vanquish Media for my company. And then I was actually doing a client job in Mexico, where I met one of Shane's business partners in his yoga wear brand on a yoga retreat. And I shot a video for Shane's yoga company, and then we started jamming. Like that's.
And here we are.
We were like, bro, you surf?
Yeah.
Like, bro,
yeah,
you like yoga
like,
and you surf?
And you surf.
Dude, I like to surf too, man. Let's start an empire together.
Classic Canadian.
That's pretty much how it went.
Yeah, that's super high level, but it was like, I started doing client services, and then always loved creating products, always loved the idea of building a brand. And then the last year has been me slowly transitioning from doing client services. I still do client services to pay my bills. That's kind of what pays me to live, is doing client work. Yeah. And then everything else kind of goes into building the brands. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
and
that's where bridges cross.
That's where bridges
cross.
Yeah,
that's where
swords
paths cross.
That's where it was.
Our swords cross. That's where our swords cross.
Yeah, that's my story, I think. And then I'll let you go into
Yeah,
yours.
I mean, I don't want to go too deep into things, but
Why don't you want to go too deep into that?
Well, I don't want to start crying on the podcast. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, I was in university going to school to be a gym teacher because I thought it'd be cool to wear sweats to work every day, and I thought that'd be a good life. And then I just kind of hit like this personal crisis right around like second year where, I just felt like I was wasting time, wasting my parents' money, didn't know who I was or what I was doing. And I actually stumbled across a video by Jim Rohn. Are you familiar with Jim Rohn?
Jim Rohn is like, he's older, right?
He's older. He's like one of the godfathers of like the personal development movement way back.
And MLM stuff too, right? Or not?
Yeah, MLM. Yeah.
I listened to I think I listened to one. Jim Rohn.
Yeah.
I love his voice.
Oh, I know. He's got this like grandfather, this like dad voice that just like puts you to. Anyway, yeah. So I came across him, and it kind of opened up my eyes to this personal development world I didn't know about. And it. Like, I remember, like, listening to that, it completely changed my mindset around, like, it just, like, it hit home. Like, when you, like, it felt like when somebody picks up a sport and they're good at it right away, like, it just felt something was right about it where I'm like, I need to continue down this path.
You're like, this is my purpose.
There's something around this. I didn't know what it was, but I just, like, kind of dove all into that industry, like, spent the last 2 years of university just diving through, like, all the big personal development guys. Like, listened to everything Tony Robbins had at the time, which was, like, CDs. It was like buying CDs for a car. This was like before YouTube, right? So I had listened to like everything on YouTube at the time with personal development motivation, to where like a new video would come up on YouTube and I'd know about it. It's crazy now.
I listened to that.
Yeah, it's like I've listened to all the ones on YouTube, which is crazy now because there's so much, right? Like you could never listen to everything that's out on YouTube, but this is before podcasts and all that stuff, right? So my mindset definitely changed a lot. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
I read that one too.
Yeah, great one. And his big advice was you got to get experience in sales. Yeah. So I went out, I got a sales job, slinging gym memberships. right out of university.
That's pretty
and
cool.
Yeah. Met a business mentor that I had sold a membership to, and long story short, I saw her building a really cool brand, and I realized I was trading my time for money.
Yeah.
And, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to quit this and I'm going to start building something. At the time, I had a friend who was building a store on Shopify. He showed me his sales, and I'm like, fuck it. I'm out of this job. Let's fucking build a business.
All you need is to see the numbers, and you're just like,
that's why the
wow.
Shopify screenshots work so well for all those guys selling courses, right?
Like, you don't get any information about okay, what is net? What is what are the metrics behind it? No, it's just like boom, numbers, and you're like, let's go.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, tried a couple different stores, couple different products. The first things didn't work. It's, a similar story to what you had. And then I tried, I thought I have a background in fitness. Maybe there's something that I understand in that area. Tried selling some stuff to men. It didn't work. And I was like, you know what? Girls. That's who's buying stuff online. What can I sell in the fitness realm that's, that girls will buy? Kind of landed on yoga pants, put like a drop shipping yoga wear brand up, got some initial sales right away.
That's cool.
And then that kind of took flight.
Yeah.
So I've been running a brand called nomadic for going on 3 years now.
Yeah.
That was the brand that finally got some weight behind it.
Yeah.
And the one that Zach had shot for. So that's where our paths kind of crossed. And since then we've tried to figure out a system where we can build brands in a really cool and creative way that are going to scale really fast. So now I'm focused on building big brands that are going to last for the long term under kind of like our Foreplay umbrella that we have, where we're trying to build out a system that we can run ourselves, but also offer to other people.
Yeah.
So Foreplay is a mix between kind of like a private equity fund of brands that we're also offering the system out as a service.
It's so cool because we're really doing things on so many similar levels, but that is that's the way, right? If you look at our journey up to this point, if you really want to be on the top and if you really want to be connected, you have to open up that umbrella. You have to be doing design, you have to be doing branding, you have to be doing building, and it can go anywhere, right? You guys can sell a brand in X whatever next year, a couple of years from now. It brings your connection. Doing a podcast, even this is really cool.
Yeah, man, it's a lot of fun.
What you guys are doing is really.
This is
really
probably
cool.
honestly, I think the podcast for me is in terms of things I do for work, which is this is not work at all, but definitely I probably the funnest thing.
We have the best job.
We do. Yeah, 100%. Because no one tells us what to do.
Wait, what day is it? What day is it today?
Fuck, it's Wednesday. It's
I don't even know. Do you know what date it is?
I don't know the day.
The only reason I know what day it is because it's fucking Facebook page score day. That's the only reason why I know that it's Wednesday.
Yeah.
So it's Wednesday, the September
20-something.
20-something.
I mean, it's pretty
Year's
cool.
going by way too quick.
And we're here sitting and drinking water, in Toronto on a Wednesday afternoon when most people are slave to their work.
Absolutely.
Dude, it's 100% worth it.
It's so cool.
It's worth the risk.
It's funny. I heard somebody put this the other day. It's we refuse to work for somebody else. What was the quote? We refuse to work for somebody else to pay our bills, but we're willing to make no money. Fuck, I can't remember the quote. I'm going to butcher it.
No, you just said it right there. No, you just
notes.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I don't know. Whatever. I think people probably connected those dots of what you're trying to say.
What the coolest takeaway for me is that now this piece of content will be online forever. Yeah. And we could, go ahead.
I think what all of us had said, we had watched content as in very pivotal points of our lives. Yeah. And I think we all look at those people, you look at Jim Rohn, just I kind of look at people like Tony Robbins and Tim Ferriss and Kevin Rose in those times that were reading the 4 Hour Work Week and reading The Wealthy Barbers. That was all content we consumed. That was a pivotal point for, and there's a chance, I'm not saying it will be, there's a chance that someone listens to this podcast.
It will.
And it ends up being a pivotal point in their moment, and even saying that gives me goosebumps.
Oh,
because if Tim Ferriss walks in right now, I read the 4 Hour Work Week on the GO train going back to tell my parents I was going to drop out of school. That has such a weighted point in my life. If this could be 10% of that for someone else, that's what
keeps us going though, I think. And that I've gotten really emotional over that too. Is when you realize the big picture, you never know what an action, or an action has that much more weight. Therefore, you put a lot of emphasis on actually living a life that is a good life.
Yeah. Because with intention too, right?
Intent. If who knows? Right, but we can trust that this is going to go somewhere, and I mean, hopefully that it can impact lives, and hopefully that someone will take away 1 or 2 points from this podcast and be able to apply it to their lives and see their life improve and flourish.
Yeah,
And I think hats off to you guys for doing this because, yeah.
Thanks for coming down.
It's
I know
cool,
you're only here for like what 4 days.
Yeah, I'm leaving tomorrow. So.
Leaving tomorrow. All right, sweet
Yeah,
man.
so.
Well, we hope to have you back anytime that you're in Toronto.
Yeah, and when you guys are in Asia next, we'll hopefully do a podcast there as well.
Yeah,
Let's
that'd
do
be
it up.
awesome,
That'd be
man.
cool.
Sweet.
All right.
Okay, I think it's a good spot to wrap it up. And
Anything else that what,
do you want
are
to
you
like
up to,
plug your
Daniel?
personal
Where
brand
can
or any of the
people-
brands?
Oh yeah.
Or-
Oh okay. So I'm on Instagram heavy, but that could change. So hopefully, I'm trying to get the domain Daniel Phillip, like just dominate that. So you can always go to danielphillip.com or Instagram. It's .danielphillip. And I'll do one thing. Anybody that messages me on Instagram, I'll send you guys a free watch.
Boom.
Sweet.
So I gotta get you guys up with watches too.
I think you sent me one. I think it might be at my old apartment. I gotta go like check
so
the mail
I'll
there.
send you one,
Nice.
and yeah, just talk like I've got a team monitoring that, and if you actually want to talk to me, just be like, hey, I really want to talk to just Dan. Otherwise, you'll be talking to someone else. But just say you listen to this podcast, and we'll send you guys out a watch. I think it's pretty cool.
Dope.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
Cheers. Sweet. That was a fucking.
That was good.